is not just a book for me, it is a way of life. And I thought that because it's the thing that's getting me through these times and has been since the pandemic, and there are many other times when I've been going through crises or challenging, difficult circumstances, and use the principles from the power of now, like only this moment matters, to get me through. So I would have to say that Eckhart Tolle is one of my most compelling and important, valuable, favorite spiritual teachers. He actually walks the walk. I've never seen or known anybody in the world like him. Of all the thousands and thousands of people I've interviewed, I will have to say Eckhart Tolle is the only person alive that I know, that I've talked to, who doesn't have an ego. So I'm excited to be able to talk to him today. I'm going to look for him on Insta now to see if he's joining us. Are you there, Eckhart? Eckhart, where are you? Beautiful day in the neighborhood. I'm looking for him now. What do you see? Don't see him. Okay, Eckhart, I'm waiting for you to come on, but I'm sure you're here. I'm just not seeing you. Pause for technical difficulties. Not in my feed yet. So let me just talk a little bit about the book while we're waiting on Eckhart or looking for Eckhart. I had Eckhart and Father David to my house a couple of years ago just because I was trying to center myself about all the chaos and hysteria that was going on. And I remember sitting and having dinner with Eckhart, and I'm saying, gosh, these feel like really dark times. And Eckhart made me laugh because he said, well, you can have dark times, and even in dark times, even when there's the dark ages only last for 100 or so years. And I laughed out loud because I'm like, Eckhart, really, I would prefer not to have to go 100 or so years. So Eckhart, where are you? There you are.
Oh,
How are you? Good to see you again.
fine. I was having technical difficulties because I'm a low-tech person and Instagram is high-tech.
I'm a low tech person too, but I've managed Instagram. And you know what's so interesting? Just before we were doing this, my team said to me, Eckhart's team wants to turn off the comments because he doesn't wish to deal with all the trolls. And I thought, wow, that is pretty amazing because all this time I've been like, oh God, you got to deal with the trolls. It never occurred to me you can just turn it off so you don't have to deal with the trolls. You can turn off the comments. So that's why we're turning off the comments, y'all, because we're only here for people who want to hear the message and not here for the people who wish to troll the message. So I think it's pretty powerful.
Yes.
So you know what? Thank you so much for joining me. I still have this book by my bedside. I actually have the one that you gave to me as a leather edition. So I really appreciate this so much. I wanted to just read from a portion in The Power of Now called When Disaster Strikes. It says, when disaster strikes, become an alchemist, transmute metal into gold, suffering into consciousness, disaster into enlightenment. It continues that only disaster has the potential to crack the hard shell of ego and force them into surrender and so into the awakened state. So I'm wondering, is that what this moment is trying to teach us? Because I was just sharing before you came about the moment we were sitting at my table a couple of years ago with Father David when I was so concerned about the division and chaos, and you said, well, you need this in order to crack the shell. And I was saying, well, are we moving into the dark ages? And you said, well, if we are, the dark ages only last a couple hundred years. I'd rather not do that. I'd rather not to the dark ages if not. So what is this moment trying to teach us?
Well, that's the what's the function of adversity, or what one could use many terms, tribulation, things going wrong. I've met countless people who've come to me and said to me, if I had not gone through what I have gone through in my life, in some cases it was a serious illness, an accident, or great loss. They lost everything, and they said I would never have been open to the spiritual teaching and to the awakening of consciousness and to finding real inner peace that is not dependent on external circumstances. They were able to find it because they were confronted. They were taken out totally out of their comfort zone, so to speak, facing very difficult circumstances, external circumstances. And that is initially that creates an enormous amount of suffering. And at some point, people begin to wake up and realize that there is another way of facing this situation instead of the unconscious way reactivity that most people have when things go wrong externally. They immediately react against the situation, and that creates suffering. So it's at some point people realize that if I come to a place of acceptance of the present moment, acceptance of the isness of the present moment, which you can never question, that takes you very deep beyond the conditioning of your mind. And then you realize, and perhaps many people are beginning to realize, a huge amount of suffering is actually not necessarily created by things going wrong externally, but even by just creating the mental possibility that things may go wrong creates even more suffering.
Yeah, one of the things that I have learned that's gotten me through so many hard times is that the only moment that matters is this one right now. And if you can look at what is going on, your space, your circumstances right now, you can most often say, right now all is well. Right now all is well. And in the moments to come, it may not be well or may be well, but in this moment right now, all is well.
Yes.
And one of the things that I think that has happened, and we talked about this a lot when you were at my kitchen table, that we are meeting the hysteria with more hysteria. And we were talking about how the media is as equally as hysterical as the circumstances that they're reporting, and that everybody just talks about the hysteria and the chaos over and over and over again, and how we consistently remind ourselves of how awful things are, and then things continue to be awful.
Yes, I would recommend that everybody reduces the amount of time they spend on both social media and watching mainstream media, reduce the amount of time and instead use that time for your practice with being present in the moment. That brings about a shift in your state of consciousness. There's an enormous power that's hiding in the present moment. And the more present you are, the more you're able to face circumstances when they actually do arise. Then there is a power in you to take right action if action is possible or necessary, and even the right words come out of your mouth when you're talking to somebody. So it's to this presence practice, bringing attention continuously back to the present moment, is absolutely the most vital spiritual practice there is.
I
And so,
believe I
yeah.
believe it, learned it. So we have some great questions for you today from our readers. The first one is from Lucy, who's asking about something that many of us are struggling with, Eckhart, during this pandemic. Lucy says, how does one not feel grief for all of those who stand to lose their healthcare coverage, or for those who can't feed their children enough food or pay their rent? How do I stop feeling overwhelming sadness when I'm reminded of watching my mother die through the window of her care facility as my sister and I sang her the lullabies she used to sing to us? That's very real.
Yes, in some situations, obviously you feel it is natural to feel sadness. And if I may just describe, uh, my mother passed away. This is maybe relevant in this context. Um, she passed away in '06, and her death was not precipitated by a virus, but there was a heat wave. And in Europe, almost nobody has air conditioning. So she was 86, and many elderly people died in this heat wave. And so that's very sad. And I remember I was weeping when I sat next to the, I wasn't even able to be there in time to witness her death. And finally I arrived and I sat next to her body and I wept. Of course, I felt deep sadness, but I also had a deep acceptance of this. So underneath the sadness, there was a peace. So you can respond to circumstances emotionally, which is a human thing to do. It's deeply human. You can't cut yourself off from emotions. That's not a spiritual thing. But underneath the emotions, when there is a deep acceptance of the isness of things, then you find that what Jesus called the peace that passeth all understanding, which means the peace that you feel is the inner peace that cannot be explained with reference to external circumstances. And sometimes it seems to be in opposition almost to external circumstances.
Yeah, let me just make a fine point on that. Additional to that is that one of the biggest lessons I have taken away and abide by from the power of now is that stress, which is also anxiety, frustration, whatever else you want to call it, but stress, you say, is wanting the present moment to be something that it isn't. And what I have learned, and the thing that has helped me so much, y'all, is being able to accept this moment, this political moment for what it is, this challenging relationship moment, whatever the moment is for you, accept, getting to acceptance. And one of the things I've learned about that, Eckhart, you can tell me if this is correct or not, but what I have found is it's like the 5 stages of grief apply to everything in our life. At first, there's this shock, you can't believe it. Then there's the denial, then there's a sadness, then there's an anger, which comes when you have loss. And I think particularly during these times, during the pandemic, people have lost their loved ones, but everybody has lost something. We've lost a way of life that we were accustomed to. And so there is an internal conscious and unconscious grieving that we're all experiencing. And I have found that the best way to get through any grief or any loss is to get to acceptance as quickly as you can. Accept this moment for what it is, then you can make a decision about what you will do with the moment. But you got to accept the moment first, because wishing the moment was something other than what it is only causes more resistance.
That's true. And any action you take, because acceptance does not necessarily imply or mean that you become incapable of taking action in order to, if this the possibility of doing something about a situation or problem. But if acceptance...
And it also doesn't mean that you like it. It doesn't, accept
No.
doesn't mean that you like it. It means that I accept that it is what it is.
Yes.
Now what will I do? But
yes. And the thing that connects you, this acceptance brings about a shift in consciousness, a very subtle shift in consciousness, and that connects you actually with a deeper intelligence that's beyond the egoic mind, because acceptance takes you out of the egoic mind, out of the ego. Then you connect to a deeper level of intelligence. You could say it emanates from if you want to use theistic language, it emanates from God, if you are comfortable with that. But they said you connect with a deeper place. And then any action you take, the foundation for the action is then that state of, that powerful state of inner peace that makes you more intelligent. If you're in a state of resistance or in a state of fear, many people are in fear. Fear is part of resistance to the present moment, because you're usually projecting a future moment which is going to be worse
Well,
than this
a lot
one.
of people are saying that right now, Eckhart. A lot of people are saying, you know, waiting to see what's going to happen on November 3rd, and also recognizing that we may not even know after
Exactly.
November 3rd for a long time. So how can we be dealing with that anxiety of, oh, what's going to happen?
Yes, yes. So, and of course, if you're in the grip of anxiety, fear, uh, that that emotion kind of contaminates your thinking, your thought activity. And when your thinking is contaminated by the emotion of fear, your thinking also becomes often irrational and quite dysfunctional. You cannot take
Right.
intelligent action if your mind is controlled by fear. So it's very important to be very alert. First, if possible, try to free yourself from anxiety by using present moment practice, because there's nothing to fear in the present moment. That sometimes, well, let's say a wild animal suddenly comes running towards you. That is not the psychological fear that we are talking about here, because then you will get an impulse, adrenaline would come up, and some people might call that fear. But we are talking here about psychological fear, which is not something to do with a situation that we are facing immediately in the present moment. It's a situation that arises in your mind and in the externalized collective human mind that's on the internet and the media. There's all the externalized human mind, and all that is governed these days by anxiety and fear. So getting out of that so that you can take intelligent action, and your words become actually more peace. You bring peace into this world rather than add to the chaos, add to the confusion, add to the fear.
This is from who says, and we get a lot of I got a lot of similar questions from many of you that represent what Steph said. How can we practice stillness when it's action that seems necessary right now to heal our world? Really good question.
Yes, again, people often believe that stillness implies that you are inactive or you sit still. We use that word stillness to describe an inner state of consciousness that is not governed by the conditioned thought activity in your mind. So there's a moment of presence or awareness, and then you act. Correct action arises, the realization what it is that you need to do or are able to do in this moment arises out of that state of stillness. And then that is an action that does not produce further chaos. It's in Eastern terms, you don't add to the karma of this world. You don't add to the suffering of this world. So people often ask that question. I say, well, how can I accept things that I see are wrong? You don't accept a huge set of circumstances. The acceptance is only applied to the present moment. Then you see more clearly what it is that needs to be done and how to do it.
Yeah. So what you're saying is accept the present moment what it is, and then take action after you have that acceptance. And
Yes,
so the this
if
comes of this is what is, now what must I do? I mean, I have been all week doing these rallies in swing states, virtual rallies in swing states, because I feel that the action that be taken is for people to actively use their voice and let their voices be heard. And that comes out of my frustration and my anxiety, but using that in accepting something needs to be done and then going to do the action. But the stillness comes first, then the action, is what you're saying.
Yes, that's right. Yes, correct.
Okay, this is a great question. Final question from Dear Life, I Love You. What does the soul of the world need right now?
Well, the term soul of the world, in my terminology, I call it the consciousness that underlies everything, the universal consciousness that underlies everything. And this universal consciousness that underlies everything, which is an emanation, as I call it just briefly, so I hope it doesn't go too deep, that's an emanation that comes from the source of all life, which we may call God. This consciousness that pervades the universe, and it manifests as countless life forms, including me and you and every human being. This consciousness is in the process of awakening. So there is the entire universe, the consciousness you can see on the planet. If you go back billions of years, the planet was much more, there were not differentiated and highly complex life forms as they are now. They came gradually. Gradually, life becomes more complex. Even in your own life, you can see how you gradually have awakened. And in my life, from a state of completely identified with thought to activity, something awakened in me that I realized there is a deeper dimension to who I am. And the same thing happened to you. You realize there's more to you than meets the eye. And more to you than your thoughts. There's a deeper dimension. That's an awakening. What the universe wants is every human needs to awaken so that there's a shift in consciousness from ego to the realization of the essence of who you are.
Yeah,
And you can only
that's
do that.
that's Real New Earth, my favorite book of all time.
So the world, the soul wants to come, the light of consciousness, which is I've been recently talking a lot about the light of consciousness, which is used also by Jesus. And remember, in the New Testament, before God creates even the celestial bodies, it's a mythological account, of course, but it's quite deep. God says, let there be light. So at the very beginning, and that light means consciousness. There's a consciousness that pervades the universe and that gradually expresses itself more fully through every life form. So the universe and the soul of the universe wants to awaken more. It wants to, through every human being.
So that's what this moment of divisiveness, chaos, confusion is here to teach us, that the universe wants to awaken more. It's here to wake us up. Everything we've experienced this summer, George Floyd's murder, all of us witnessing that, live on our television screens, all of it is saying, wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. And truthfully, what I wish everybody could come to know and understand, and that's why the power of now is the beginning of that understanding for a lot of people, is that it's our collective consciousness that has allowed our world and even our government to be what it is right now. And our heads of government are just reflecting that consciousness back to the people. Everybody gets so crazed talking about what's going on in government when the government representatives, no matter who they are, is just a reflection of the collective consciousness. It could not exist without the collective consciousness.
Exactly, and that's why there was a not very well-known 19th French philosopher who said, every nation has the government it deserves. That means, of course, what you just said, the external, the institutions and the government are a reflection or manifestation of the collective state of consciousness or unconsciousness.
That I was worried about something that was happening during Barack Obama's campaign in 2008. And I was really upset. And he called me and said, don't worry, the American people will get the president they deserve. And so that actually helped to calm me a lot, that that if he felt that way, then okay, I'm going to feel that way too. And so that's what's going to happen on Tuesday, that the
Yes,
collective consciousness will rise to whatever that decision is going to be. And
yes,
that's what will be shown to us. So thank you so much for this. Can you lead us in just like a minute or so meditation to calm us and accept this moment that we're having right now for what it
yes,
is?
yes. Let's take attention into the present moment if we're not already there, which means we become aware, first of all, of sense perceptions, not only what you're looking at the screen, but also what surrounds you. So you come to your senses, one could say. This is the beginning of the present moment. And you become aware that you're breathing. That's a wonderful tool for anchoring you in the present moment. You notice that you're breathing. So you're breathing consciously. You're observing the fact that you're breathing consciously. Doesn't take long, just a few seconds. I call it a mini meditation. And then perhaps you can feel that your body is alive because you breathe into your body, and your body is pervaded by a subtle sense of aliveness. Your hands, your feet are alive. So you feel alive. That's an anchor for present moment. And what is that aliveness? That aliveness that you sense is the underlying consciousness that holds the body together, the intelligent principle that holds the body. And what is it? Consciousness, that you are that beyond. Forget about your past for a moment, for your personal history. There's no personal history. Forget about future. Who are you without the memory of your past? Without the memory of the past or some expectation of the future, who am I in this moment? And you cannot answer it, but you can sense at this moment there is a presence in you that is you, a conscious presence of a beingness, a presence. That means you've gone beyond ego and you've realized this is a glimpse of who you are in your essence, and every human is that. And when you can sense it in you, in yourself, you can sense it in another. And sensing it in another means ultimately, spiritually, in spiritual terms, is love and compassion and empathy, because you recognize the other is not totally other. We share the same consciousness.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Thank you. So I was saying before you connected yourself to all of us that you're the only person I've ever met on the planet who is egoless, who has ego, like your ego died. And for those who are still walking around with ours, mine, I see it showing up all the time, and I'll go, oh, there you are. And as you say, that when you are able to recognize it, you actually are able to soften it. You are able to lower the vibration of it when you go, oh, there's my ego again. Yeah. Is it a lifelong process for the rest of us? Most of us.
It's for most people a gradual process of recognition. But the good thing is, when you recognize your own ego, then you're not totally in the grip of it anymore. That's already, you're already outside. So that's good.
Thank you for the power of now. I'm sure maybe you did. Did you realize in 1999 when you wrote this that its power and effectiveness would last forever?
No, I knew there was something powerful there. I thought it would only appeal to a few people, but it didn't. And then, of course, with your help too, but it's continuing to have a beneficial effect on humans, and that's wonderful to know.
You know, I hope you all will join us at Oprah's Book Club as we continue to talk about the books that have gotten me through and books that have gotten other people. I've seen a couple people comment about this book, Eckhart, that, wow, I started to read it and it's too much for me and maybe I'm not ready for it. And you say that actually in A New Earth, my favorite book of all time, because I didn't start with A New Earth because I thought people need to grow into a new earth. But you say that when you're ready for it, you'll be able to receive it. And sometimes you put it, if you've got, I saw a lot of comments from you all, people who said, oh yeah, I have that book. It's been on my shelf for a couple of years. When you're ready and you come back to it, it will.
And usually it means when you're not ready, it means you need to suffer a little bit more, and then you'll be ready.
Thanks for talking to us today. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Oprah. Thank you.
See you at Oprah's Book Club for
Yes.
next. Thank you. Bye.